I'm Jo from Specialist Language Courses, and we are OET Premium Preparation Providers, here to help you prepare for your OET exam. In this video, we're going to look at reported speech and how we can use it in OET writing. The material in this video is taken from our online course, OET Preparation for Nurses Writing. It is a MOOC recently released by SLC on the Udemy platform, which has been specifically designed for nurses who want help with the OET writing test. So, let's take a look at reported speech. So, first of all, have a little look at these pictures. What is happening in the pictures? In the first picture, perhaps it's a doctor-patient consultation. And in the second one, it's two nurses discussing a patient, maybe doing a handover, something like that. So now I want you to read through these phrases and I want you to decide which photo these phrases refer to and who is saying them. So pause the video now. Let's take a look. So, first of all, the doctor's asking him, when did the pain start? He then says, I'll need to do a few tests. The patient explains, I've been feeling nauseous all day. And he asks, do I have a heart condition? And the other phrase, what the nurse says, I've just checked his blood pressure. His dressing will need to be changed this afternoon. She says, don't forget to monitor his catheter bag and write his observation here. So perhaps it's one nurse saying all of these things and she's handing over the patient to her colleague. So what happens if we want to report what was said in a consultation or a conversation? We use reported speech. So what I'd like you to do is to pause the video in a moment and see if you can work out how to report what these people said. I'll show you an example first. So the patient says, I've been feeling nauseous all day. You report it by saying, he said that he had been feeling nauseous all day. So there are a few changes to tenses and some of the words that you'll need to do as a little hint for you there. So pause the video now and let's see what you know. Okay, let's check out the answers. So the second one here, the doctor told him he would need to do a few tests. Changes from will to would. He asked the doctor if he had a heart condition, so change from present to past. The doctor asked him when the pain had started. She said his dressings would need to be changed that afternoon. So again, will to would, and this afternoon to that afternoon. She told her to write his observations there. So again, sort of make it a bit more distance. Normally we say here in the direct speech, but when we're reporting it, it's like we step back and look from afar and we say there. She told her not to forget to check his catheter bag. Let's do a little analysis now of what the changes are when we make the change from direct to reported speech. So what I'd like you to do is use the examples here, pause the video and see if you can answer the questions 1 to 7 below. Okay. Let's have a look. So if we take the first question, what happens to the verb when changing from direct to reported speech? Well, the simple answer is they move one tense backwards. Okay, so we've got an example here. I've been feeling, present perfect continuous, changes to he had been feeling, past perfect continuous. Again here, do I have is in present simple, changes to he had, past simple. There are a few other changes for questions, but in terms of tense, it still changes from present to past. Again here, when did the pain start? Past simple. When the pain had started, past perfect. I've just checked, present perfect. She had just checked, past perfect. Okay. Let's look at the next question. What happens to the pronoun? So as I said before, it's like we're stepping out of the conversation and looking in from outside. So obviously you're not the person who spoke, you're not the I, so you need to say, he said it, yeah? He said he had been feeling nauseous, or she said she wanted to go to the bathroom, for example. So I changes to he or she, we changes to they. And then we've got this next question here. What happens to the time expressions, for example, yesterday, this afternoon? Again, they change, like we're on the outside looking in from afar. So this afternoon, for example, here, changes to that afternoon. Yesterday, yesterday changes to the day before or the previous day, and tomorrow changes to the next day or the following day. There are a few other changes that also happen with words that aren't necessarily time expressions, but things like here changes to there, for example. This changes to that. Okie dokie, let's look at the next question. What verbs do we use to introduce what has been said? The most common ones we use are he said, that, it's optional, or he told him or she told her. Do notice the form here. With the verb say, we do not use the object. So we don't say he said her, it's just he said. And with the verb tell, you must use the object. You tell someone something. So she told her, I told him. Okay? There are other verbs you can use, for example, explain, deny, for example. He denied that he had forgotten to take his medication, and a few other ones that you might use in the OET writing. How do we report imperatives? We report imperatives. So imperatives are those order verbs, you know, when you're giving commands, yeah, like write, don't forget. And we report this using the verb tell someone, and the full infinitive, so with to and the infinitive. So here, she told her to write, and then the negative, not to forget. Now moving on to questions. Do we use the auxiliary verbs, so I mean do and have, in reported questions? The simple answer is no. So if we look at the example here, when did the pain start? In normal questions, we use the auxiliary verb to form the question. Yeah, it signals that it's in the past tense. However, with reported questions, we don't use it. Yeah, when the pain had started. So we know it's a question because of the reporting phrase here. The doctor asked him. Okay, and then the form for reported questions is, we then do the question word. So I asked him, So the reporting phrase, then we want the question word, then you have the subject, so here it's the pain, and then you have the verb in the correct tense. And here it's had started in past perfect because the original question was in past simple. When did the pain start? Okay, so this is the formula that you use for reported questions. Then thinking about yes/no questions, so if the answer is yes or no, for example, do I have a heart condition? What extra word do we use there? And the answer is if. Okay, so for yes/no questions, we use if. Again, we do not use an auxiliary verb like in direct questions, okay? So it would be the reporting phrase, he asked the doctor. Then it would be if, there's no question word. And then the subject. And then the verb and any complements. Okay, and notice no question marks. So how can we use reported speech in OET writing? So we often have to report what other people say. So it might be perhaps what a patient's relatives have said, maybe what another healthcare professional has said, or maybe what the patient said themselves. And we might need to report this, if relevant, in our OET letter. So we've got an example here. Imagine what the situation is here. So the patient is having difficulty with the self-administration of their medication. Okay, so they've probably said this to you in your consultation or in your home visit or whatever. So you need to report what the patient has said or what the patient has told you. So this would change to, she reported that she was having difficulty with the self-administration of her medication. Notice all the extra words that you need to add, yeah? The self-administration of her medication, making sure that you're expanding in full sentences. So take a look at these extracts. So they are independent of each other. They are not connected. They are three separate patients. Have a little look, pause the video, and what I'd like you to do is expand them into full sentences and report what was said. Okay, so pause the video now. Okay, let's take a look at some examples. Now, there are more than one possibility for doing this, but I've got some examples here. So the first one, so last week, mother informed me he has been refusing to eat with the family. So we want to make that change from he has been to he had been, because it was last week. Okay, so we could write it like this. Last week, the mother told me that he had been refusing to eat with the family. Now, I've just made the change from informed to tell, just to sort of use my own words rather than just copying what's in the case notes. Here we've got a specific date, and the physiotherapist reports he has been improving, but patient says exercises are difficult. So when you're doing this in the OET writing, imagine what was actually said out loud. And then you can transfer that to reported speech. So, for example, on the 12th of May, the physiotherapist noted that he had been improving. However, Mr. X said that the exercises were too difficult. And then we've got here, patient says he will follow the diet, March, patient still excessively overweight. So imagine what he said in that consultation. I will follow the diet, nurse, I will. And then obviously later he's not. So how would we report that? You could say, in December, Mr. X said that he would follow the diet. However, in March, he was still excessively overweight. Okay, so we imagine that now it's maybe May or June, something like that, and we need to report about lack of adherence to the diet. So top tips for reported speech. Here are a few study tips that might help you improve your use. So look at sample OET letters for examples of reporting language. It's full of them. You know, make a list of the different verbs used. You know, he informed me, he claimed, he said, he noted. Make a list in your notebook and write in lots of contexts. Yeah, so review common reporting verbs and write example sentences in a variety of contexts. That way you become more confident in using the structures. Another thing you could do to improve it is to watch consultation videos online and then pause and report what the patient has said. So everything they say, pause. The patient said that he had been feeling dizzy, for example. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to work in an English-speaking environment now, you can do it while you're working there. You think about what people said. Oh, he told him to, and write it down or say it in your head while you're working. So thanks for watching. If you want help with your OET writing, including a reported speech and much, much more, just click on the link in the description box below and enroll on our course. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more tips and strategies for OET success. See you next time. Bye.